Okay, here's warm-up 10R. We're going to be writing equations for circles. So you need to know what the formula is for a circle, and the standard form equation is going to look like this. Okay, so there are three things that you're going to need. Well, two things really. You need the center and the radius. The center, so when I said three things, I need the x and the y coordinates of the center. Those are going to go in those positions. And then I need the radius. So I need to plug in those 3 bits, and then I can write my equation. So let's check out the given info here. We've got a center at 5, -3, so I'm just going to put that into my picture. And a through point, so by a through point, I just mean that's a point on the outside of the circle. Now, I'm not plotting this on an XY axis, so I'll just put that point wherever. I'm putting it down here and just saying that's -2, 7. Okay? So, the center of the circle is given. That is going to be the h and the k. So I can plug those pieces in right now. I've got x minus 5, right? And then that's going to be squared, and y minus -3. So I've got a double negative in there. So in your final answer, you'd want to write the double negative as a positive. Okay, and I still need to figure out the radius. I just left that blank, and that's where most of the work is going to come in on this problem. So the radius is the distance from the center to any point on the circle. So, hey, that would be my radius. So I need the length of the radius. So what I'm going to do is use the distance formula with those 2 points. So the distance formula, my old friend, the distance formula is going to be the difference of the x's squared plus the difference of the y squared. You add, and then add those differences together and take the square root of the whole thing. So this distance between these points is going to be the radius. So for my x's, I'll do 5 minus -2 for my x's. It doesn't really matter which direction you subtract because you're going to square it anyways. And for the y's, I'll do -3 minus 7. Okay, so let's see, that'd be 5 plus 2, so that's 7 squared, and -3 minus 7 would be -10 squared. Okay, so now I'll do the actual squaring. So let's see. So the mistake here that I sometimes see is people say, oh, the square root and the squares undo each other. But no, because you have to do the addition before you take the square root. So I'm going to first square 7 into 49. -10 times itself is 100. So I've got the square root of 149. Okay, now I could make a decimal approximation out of that, or I could try to put it in simple radical form. But for a problem like this, there's no point, because I'm going to need the radius squared anyways, right? So if this is the radius, if I wanted to find r squared, well, I can just square both sides of this. So r squared is just going to be exactly 149. So there's no point in making that a decimal or simple radical form, because you're squaring it anyways when you plug it in here. So now I have r squared is 149, and that's the final piece of the puzzle there. And now I've got the equation for this circle. Okay. All right, next problem. We're going to start in with the same formula. It's another circle, so I'm thinking x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is going to equal r squared. Okay. All right, so let's put the given info in. This time they don't give me the center, they give me the endpoints of a diameter. So remember, a diameter is going to go from one end of the circle to the other. It's going to pass through the center. Okay, so I'm not putting this on an XY axis, so I'm not really worrying about which one of these points is which or where exactly they should go. I just put those 2 points on the ends of my diameter. Okay, so let's find the center first. Since we don't have the center, we have to find it ourselves, but we can do that because the center of the circle is also going to be the center of the diameter. So what I can do is use the midpoint formula to get the center. So the midpoint formula is where you average the 2 x's and you average the 2 y's. So that's how I'd average the two x's, right? And if I wanted to average the y's, I'd add them together and divide by 2. So that's what I'm going to do with these two endpoints. So my midpoint here, let's see, for the x's I've got 5 and -3. I'll average those, and then I'm going to average the y's, -2 and 6. Okay, and then I'll start simplifying here, so that would be 2 over 2. And this one would be 4 over 2. I can simplify further, and then I get 1 and 2. Okay, so that is my center. I'm going to put that into the picture. I like to put the stuff in the picture as I go, because I'm going to actually use that midpoint for something else in a minute. But now I've got my h and my k, right? So I can plug those pieces into the formula. Okay, so it's going to look like this. I still need the radius so that I can plug it into the formula as well. Okay, so now looking at the picture, I've got a couple of different options. One thing you could do is you could find the length of the whole diameter and then just divide it in half, and that would be the length of the radius. And that's totally fine, but also since I have the center now, this would be a radius, and so would this. So I could find the length of either one of those segments, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll find the length of this one, but it doesn't really matter. If I did the other one, it should come out the same. Okay? So for the radius, I'm going to use the distance formula again. Same distance formula from problem number 1. That's what it looks like. Okay, and let's start plugging pieces in. So for the x's, I'll do 5 minus 1 for my x's. And for the y's, I'll do -2 minus 2. Okay, and then I'll simplify inside the parentheses. I've got 4 squared and -4 squared. Now I'll do the actual squaring. -4 times itself is +16. So my radius is the square root of 32. Okay, so the most common mistakes I see for people who know how to do these problems is they'll accidentally put root 32 on the right side of this. But remember, we want r squared, right? So if I want r squared, let's just square this equation, and then that square and the square root there are going to undo each other. So I need 32 there, not square root of 32. Okay, and then I've got my equation. And that's the end of the warm-up, and I'll see you next time.